Hey everyone, Minutia Minute here with another package opening. If the yellow tape didn't give it away, this is from Vinegar Syndrome. I'm sure a lot of you guys are going to be having packages arrive soon. I'm actually recording this video on December 13th, but I'm guessing this will post later because I'm going to do a full review of what's in here once I've had a chance to watch it. But to kick this video off, I want to go ahead and open this sucker up and show you guys what I picked up from Vinegar Syndrome. Censor. This is a movie that I have been really curious to see, super interested in, and so when I saw Vinegar Syndrome was putting it out, I decided it was probably worth the blind buy. So let's take it downstairs and take a look at the contents of this. Alright guys, here it is close up. Censor on Blu-ray as released by Vinegar Syndrome. Through the magic of editing, I've had the opportunity to break this open, watch the movie, watch a good chunk of the special features, and I gotta say, I am very excited to talk about this movie with you guys. This one is a treat to watch. So, you'll notice on the interior spine, it says Beastman. If you flip that around, the other side says Asunder. And the reason for that is because the slipcase is a mock cover for a couple of movies featured inside the movie Censor. Both are films directed by Frederick North, who is a fictional director invented for the film. You get through the slipcase, and you have the proper Censor cover that is unique to the Vinegar Syndrome release. So once you remove the slipcase, you pop open the keep case, and you'll see inside there is the disc Censor. There is reversible artwork on this, so I'll flip that around and show you, but basically it's the original theatrical poster. If you were streaming this movie online, this is probably the image you're going to get. And then basically contents on the back are the same. I'm actually going to stick with the Vinegar Syndrome cover. I think that one looks kind of great, has a cool retro feel to it. Although, to be honest, like, this basic cover here is also very cool. You also get a booklet in here, which contains an essay, and then you'll get some pictures of movies within the movie, similar to how the slipcase is. So you have Asunder again, Beastman again. As you scroll through, we have Cannibal Carnage. A lot of these movies are spoofs on real, quote-unquote, video nasties from Great Britain. Evil Dad, of course, Evil Dead was a video nasty. And Driller Thriller instead of Driller Killer, which is kind of that one made me chuckle for sure. And then on the back, you've got the Vinegar Syndrome art, actually, which I just noticed. That's cool. So Minutia wife and I actually cracked into this movie the day I got it in the mail, but it took a few days to actually get through everything because this movie does have quite a few special features. So if you look at the back, there's two different commentaries, one with the filmmaker, which I have not listened to yet, a second commentary with film historian and author Kat Ellinger, and then there's a whole bunch of different interviews with the director, the lead actress, sound designer, director of photography, short interviews, most of which were done over like Zoom, so the quality isn't the greatest, but they had some interesting things to say about the movie. This film is directed by first-time director Prano Bailey Bond, and she initially did a short film called Nasty, which is sort of the prototype of what ultimately became Censor. And so that short film is included on here, which is really cool. Then you also get a couple of video essays, an interview with David Gregory on video nasties, a two-part feature-length documentary about video nasties that's actually old archival, if I believe. I haven't watched it on here, but I think I've actually seen it before. And then, of course, theatrical trailer and all those sort of usual trimmings. So if you are unfamiliar with the movie Censor, I'll give you guys a brief overview, but I don't really want to spoil it. I want you guys to go out, check this movie out. If you're someone who's into horror films, this is definitely one that gets a strong recommendation from me. But it's also one that's best to go in kind of as cold as possible. So I'll just give you kind of a loose idea of what the movie's about so we can kind of talk about it a little bit more and why I liked it. But all the major details of the film I am not going to be sharing in this video. So Censor takes place in 1984 in Great Britain. It's the height of the video nasty scare, if you're unfamiliar with that term, basically in the 80s, kind of around the same time as we were dealing with Satanic Panic. Margaret Thatcher had everybody stirred into a tizzy that all these gruesome horror movies, movies like Driller Killer, Evil Dead, were corrupting the youth of Great Britain, and they needed to be banned or censored or what have you. Much like in America, VHS took Great Britain by storm. Great Britain actually had the highest market saturation in the world for VCRs at the time. And because there were no laws on the books regulating what movies could or could not be put on VHS and shared in homes, filmmakers were basically able to make and release whatever they wanted. And of course, things like gore, horror, exploitation are all things that sell. So basically, it was kind of a race to the most graphic, horrific thing you could possibly put on film. And so, in response, the British government got involved. They started censoring films, editing films. The British Censor Board has always been very hands on with the films coming out in Great Britain. It's a lot different than here in the United States. Any given number of Hammer movies, if you watch extras on those, they were censoring those back in the day. There's a British horror movie that I like quite a lot called Night of the Demon, that had a whole bunch of notes given to them from the British Censor Board. So there's a long history of this in Great Britain. This was just sort of the 80s flavor of that. Definitely an interesting setting for a horror film. The main character in this is a censor working for the British government, and she approaches her job very clinically, um, dispassionately, methodically, but also righteously. Now, the catalyst that really sets the plot in motion, which is all over the trailers, so this isn't really a spoiler, I wouldn't say, is she sits down one day to watch a film that has ties to her past. And basically, she had a sister when she was a kid who disappeared under mysterious circumstances. And she sits down and watches this video nasty that triggers memories about that event. The one thing I'll just warn potential viewers of this movie about, because I know it has kind of mixed reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, is this film is definitely like a character study. Very similar in some ways to movies like Carnival of Souls. Um, Definitely not a movie that's like Silence of the Lambs. Like, this is not a police procedural. There are no clear-cut answers in this movie. It's very ambiguous, and the gore and violence in this movie is actually pretty minimal. It's used to great effect, very selectively, at very appropriate times, but there's not a lot of gore in this, and there's not a lot of violence in this. So if you're someone who's going to sit down to watch this looking for a little bit of horror schlock, looking for some clear answers, you don't like ambiguity, this may not be the movie for you. But if you're someone who's really interested in digging into a character for an hour and a half, seeing them go on this journey, this is a movie for you for sure. There's just so much going on in it, and I would love to talk more about the details and the nitty-gritty of it. But the fact of the matter is, like, I really don't want to spoil it. Like, this is a movie that the more cold you can go into it, the better. Now, as for the actual release of this film, of course, it's a really nice package from Vinegar Syndrome. It's got some heft to it. If you're a package freak, like, this is definitely a movie that is up your alley. The presentation on this, I would say, is absolutely top notch. The bonus features, if you're a bonus feature junkie, also top notch, like lots of great stuff. I haven't even gone through everything yet. I particularly enjoyed the commentary that I listened to with Kat Ellinger. She does an amazing job explaining how Censor engages with the 1980s, but not through kind of like nostalgia goggles like a lot of 80s things do. This takes place at a very specific time period, depicts it in a realistic way, and does so because it's central to the plot and to the character. This is not like a Stranger Things sort of a situation. Probably another reason why this film is not necessarily the highest rated on Rotten Tomatoes from like a user score, because you look at the sort of neon artwork and the tube TV in the background, and it kind of gives you that Stranger Things vibe. This is not Stranger Things. It just isn't. Even though it's all done kind of in the background and through subtext, this movie really engages with the reality of the 80s and a lot of the darker impulses that were sort of at large politically during that time period. And Kat Ellinger really engages with that subtext, gives you context for it, especially as someone living in America and was very, very young in the 1980s. She's really able to elucidate and educate on that front. I watched all of the interviews with the various filmmakers. The only kind of critique I had of them was, like I said, a lot of it's like recorded via Zoom meeting, so the quality is pretty low. But if you can kind of get past that, the filmmakers do have interesting things to say. I thought that the interview with the director of photography in particular was interesting, because this is a film that's shot in 35 millimeter, 16 millimeter, iPhone, digital camera. Like, there's a lot of different techniques employed to get the desired effect that you have in this movie, which is so effective. Like, this movie's beautiful to look at, by the way. So it's cool to hear the director of photography kind of dig into that a little bit. As I said, I didn't watch the two-part Video Nasty documentary, but I feel like I've seen it online before. I will sit down and give it a rewatch. It's nice to have it on disc, at least. There are a lot of different Video Nasty documentaries. If you buy any number of British horror films, whether they're new horror films or from the 80s, the Video Nasty era definitely left a big impression on the British horror industry. So it's nice to have that context here, but I've had ample opportunity to get context for it any number of other releases. The one documentary that jumps out to me if you're looking for any extracurricular viewing is the documentaries on Spookies, which I reviewed this movie in my 31 Days of Horror Films this year. So if you want my thoughts on Spookies, check that out. But this has two different documentaries on it. One that's about the filmmakers who are making the movie Spookies, and the other one about the production company. They were a UK-based home video company that produced this movie called Vipco, and it talks about them and their experience with the Video Nasty era and what they kind of had to do with it and all that kind of stuff. So I definitely would recommend that documentary. So if you have access to this Blu-ray disc, that documentary in particular might make kind of a fun companion piece to Censor. It's a little bit more lighthearted and will maybe take the edge off after you watch a heavier movie like Censor. So anyway, that's my final thoughts on this movie. Strong recommend from me. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. If you can't afford going to get this from Vinegar Syndrome, this is definitely a movie that's streaming. It's available. It's out there. You can rent it. Definitely give it a try if you like cerebral horror movies. This movie gets a big thumbs up from Minutia Minute. So thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed this unboxing / review. I'll see you guys soon with another movie rewind. In the meantime, I hope you guys have a happy holidays and have a great week in movies.